What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now follow me on Patreon. Not only is it the best way to help out the channel, additionally, you'll get more say in what decks I cover. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons, Newsome, you rock. Additionally, you can always use that TCGplayer link in the description down below to help the channel out. Now let's get into today's Deck Tech with Sovereign Okinec. Kind of a weird name, kind of a weird ability. It's very wordy, but it's very simple at the same time. Let's say we put a 1/1 counter on this guy. Since his base power is 3, we're going to say, hey, what's the difference? The difference is 1. We're going to put an additional counter on him. Pretty busted, you know, it just generates incremental value, but we're not going to be using it in a fair way. No, we're going to be using creatures with base power 0, such as hydras. So now essentially this guy just says, hey, double your power every time he attacks. And that's broken on itself, but we're going to throw additional ways like Colonial Hydra to double up on our 1/1 counters as well. So now you could end up starting combat with an 8/8, that 8/8 goes into a 16/16, and out of nowhere you've got a 32 creature. So, like I said, not trying to do fair stuff with this commander, and out of nowhere you could end up with 40 power creatures. Goldfishing, that happened all the time as soon as turn 5, 6, so by turn 7 you can very much guarantee that you have a very scary board of very massive creatures. So, if that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's kick it off by talking about the doubling effects, because we are greedy and having one in the command zone isn't enough for us. Branching Evolution is going to be super efficient here. At only 3 mana, it comes down before our commander and a lot of our hydras or other counter creatures, so it's going to be there early game, ready to double our stuff in the late game. The Skullspore Nexus, we can get this down to 2 mana in this deck very easily, and then now when they say, hey, those hydras just died to removal, they do, but then they come back as dinosaur funguses, so that's just going to be broken on top of the ability to double our creature's power, which will again just double the amount of counters we are getting from our commander. Colonial Hydra, played right in the deck, the first time this creature attacks it will be 32 power. We play this guy, attack with our commander, instantly he's already up to 8 power, and then next turn we attack with our Colonial Hydra, he will double his power to 16 and then our commander will double it to 32. You're taking someone out that turn very easily. Primordial Hydra, a little bit easier, just sits on the battlefield, doubles every turn. A little more passive, can definitely come down more early and just accrue value very fastly. Clamavis is definitely messed up in this deck because instead of giving our creatures 1/1 counters, they're just going to get +1 for each counter on them. So in a scenario where we're doubling power every turn, Clamavis is just adding on top of that. The math for this guy gets insane pretty fast. Let's just say we cast our Colonial Hydra. Then Clamavis is like, it's got 4 counters on it, it gets +4, so he has 8 power. Then our commander's going to throw 8 counters on him, and then Clamavis is like, hey, he's got more counters on him. Instead of him having just +4/+4, now he's got +12/+12 because he's got 12 counters on him. So now our Colonial Hydra is a 24/24 the same turn it comes down. Never mind next turn when he attacks and starts doubling as well. I don't even want to go through that. Get yourself a calculator. Hydra's growth, super simple, throws a counter on a creature, then just starts doubling counters. I will say it is pretty useful to throw on your commander even, that way your commander can just attack without worries about getting blocked, because again, this will make our commander massive pretty fast, even though its base power isn't 0. Pathbreaker Ibex, just another way to buff up our entire board and throw a ton of counters on all of our creatures all at once. Pretty busted in the deck. Bounty of Might, I literally just included this in the deck because I want to one-shot someone with our commander. You'll give our commander +9/+9, and then it'll throw 9 counters on itself, giving it +18 essentially. That is enough to send it over the 21 power threshold to start one-shotting people. Let's go over those 0 power creatures. A Baron's going to be amazing. Not only does it have that Ravenous ability, it also has Trample. When you're getting a creature to over 40 power, you definitely want that Trample ability. Not to mention, he can just start destroying our opponent's artifacts and enchantments. Steelbane Hydra, kind of the same thing. Not only do we get removal, we also get a body that gets massive and starts smashing face. Turvagon, instant board state anyone? This is your guy. He's got trample and he's got the ability to get massive very fast and then generate an instant board state. 41 ones is enough to start killing people. Hooded Hydra and Termagant Swarm, just solid insurance. Just in case these guys die, they will leave a board state, so you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Voracious Hydra not only doubles as removal, he also has that trample word, which is very impactful in this deck. Not to mention he can double his own counters in a pinch. Forgotten Ancient just starts accumulating a ton of counters, then we can double up on those counters, throw them wherever we want on our commander. Again, it is pretty useful to have a couple counters on our commander just to make sure she can attack without worrying about being blocked and killed, right? Wildwood Scourge, there's a lot of non-hydra creatures in this deck, and now whenever you're putting counters on them, you also put counters on Wildwood. This guy gets massive insanely quickly. Vreston, this guy's going to be solid to sink a ton of mana into late game, and then you get an instant board state that slowly grows. Notably, the counters just get thrown on them, so we don't even have to do that. All we have to do is keep attacking with our commander, and we're essentially just doubling their power every turn. This can get out of hand very quickly. Avenger of Zendikar, another card that can get out of hand very quickly. You've never been so happy to see a 0/1 plant token in your life. Throw Avenger of Zendikar onto the battlefield, drop your land, you've got some 1/2 plants, go ahead attack with your commander, and you've got some 2/3 plants. Next turn, drop another land, attack with your commander, and out of nowhere you've got 6-7 plants. Pretty busted, only takes 2 turns to get online with 2 lands, and then your opponents are facing down a very threatening board state. We also run a fair bit of counter synergy in the deck, like Kodama of the West Tree, Tyrant Guard, and Together Forever. It gives us some solid recursion, some solid protection, and a solid way to ramp into Oblivion. Ozolith, the Shattered Spire, I really like this card here. Again, we can start putting counters on our commander, which is a little bit important. We can't just ignore her because, again, she's not that big. She can die easily to a blocker, and it's probably the most fragile part of this deck besides just mass exile effects. Suruk and Goreclaw, not only are we putting 1/1 counters on our creatures, additionally we have haste, which can be incredibly important when we're throwing bombs on the battlefield. The Great Hinge, another 2-mana artifact in the deck that is just a bomb. Throwing 1/1 counters on our creatures, drawing us cards, doing everything we need. Defiler of Vigor just starts putting 1/1 counters on our board. Then we do run Gyre Sage as well. We're running a lot of big creatures in the deck, and then our commander's just going to double up on those counters every turn, essentially just doubling the amount of mana she can tap for. Pretty busted. Pure Strain Genestealer will never lose his counters as long as you stack the triggers correctly, right? You stack your commander's trigger first, and then Pure Strain Genestealer's trigger, and again, you'll always net counters. The Immortal Sun is just a flavor include here. It does synergize with our commander because that +1 will trigger our commander's ability to be able to distribute counters on everything. Additionally, spells are just going to cost less, and you'll get some free card advantage. Mirari's Wake is in the deck for a very similar thing. Not only are we doubling up our mana, additionally, we're just enabling our commander to start distributing 1/1 counters amongst our whole board. Now, anytime we're doing some big Timmy stuff, I want some protection, so we're definitely running Heroic Intervention. Clever Concealment is also going to be amazing here. Phasing out blocks your Cyclonic Rifts, it blocks your mass exile effects. It's one of the most efficient ways to dodge that removal. Swiftfoot Boots just to protect our important key pieces. Asceticism, I really like it here. We get that regeneration ability, not to mention all of our creatures effectively have hexproof. Shalai is also going to make an appearance here. Again, mass hexproof effects. I'm a big fan. Resourceful Defense, the Skullspore Nexus, and the Ozolith are also making an appearance here. If we do lose our creatures, at least we get to keep the counters, or we just get a big giant dinosaur replacement. Enlightened Tutor is going to go ahead and tutor for any of these protection pieces that we need. Moving on to the card advantage, we have Tribute to the World Tree. It's a 2-color deck, so that 3 pips not going to be a problem. And we're just getting another solid way to put counters on our creatures while also getting card advantage. Guruk's Uprising, we need that trample, and then additionally, we get card advantage with it. Guardian Project, casting those bombs, we're just going to be drawing cards. Cutsil's also going to be amazing in this list. It's just going to add to the protection we have on our turn especially. There's a couple ways we can get blown out, and Cutsil is just going to minimize that. Hunter's Insight and Hunter's Prowess have the ability to draw us an insane amount of cards. The only thing is, if our creatures get removed, we get blown out. This is why Cutsil and all of the hexproof effects in the deck are really going to come together to make these cards less risky. Orin Frostfang for some extra card advantage while additionally abusing the Trample and Death Touch synergy. Return of the Wild Speaker, Greater Good, and Rishkar's Expertise. Just again, another way to draw an insane amount of cards. Moving on to ramp, you know we're running Selvala Heart of the Wilds. Exploration's just going to be another way to throw a ton of lands onto the battlefield. Emerald Medallion makes this list because 90% of our deck is green. We have Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 visits, rampant growth, all the usual suspects, and then Soul Ring. Moving on to removal, we have Ram Through. This is quite literally player removal in this deck. When we have 40 to 100 power creatures, Ram Through can very easily just kill someone as long as it has trample. We are running our Beast Within and our Generous Gift to get rid of any permanents that are causing us any kind of issue. Swords to Plowshares and Nature's Claim is just going to be very efficient removal. Bane of Progress to get rid of any of those enchantment / artifact decks. Austere Command is kind of some sneaky tech in the deck, because even though our hydras are massive, technically their CMC is still just 2, so this can literally blow out our opponents and be a one-sided board wipe. Azura's Predation is going to be very good against those token strategies. We can literally take their win away from them and turn it into our win. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. If you enjoyed this one and you want to go steal your opponent's creatures while making them cry, Don Andreas is right around the corner. Additionally, guys, I would like to thank my patrons, especially my high contributing ones, Newsome and Chicken Salad. You guys are amazing, as well as all of you other patrons. I really couldn't do it without you guys. You guys are amazing. As always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.